Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So happy to have some time with you today. It's Thursday, and it's 1 o'clock, in case anyone needs any of that information. And we are so happy to have some time with you. As you know, YWTV is all about inspiring you and educating you and keeping us social during the time of social distancing. And although people are getting out a little bit more, this is still a great way for us to stay connected. Another wonderful program that we launched during this time is the Share the Mic Now campaign. And for those of you that have been following us, you know that a few weeks ago we started this where we are sharing our platform at the YWCA with Black women in the community to be able to speak about some of the issues that are important to them. And it's a wonderful way for us to build a bridge and gain an understanding. And obviously, during this time where we're trying to amplify the voices of Black women in our community. So today, we have a wonderful opportunity to speak with Shirell Gross. Shirell is a friend to the YW for many years now. She's been part of lots of different events that we've hosted. Most recently, and right before the world here went into lockdown, she and her good friend, Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter, were our keynote speakers at our Women's Leadership Conference.
Yes, we got
And that was a lot of fun, right?
Yes,
The last time we hugged and
I know.
stood side by side
Yeah,
in a large group of 120 women,
yeah,
right?
yes. Now we have to do air hugs.
Lots of air hugs, shoulder bump, right, elbow bumps, and a
Yeah,
lot of Zoom and virtual meetings for sure. But I personally feel very fortunate to have Shirell in my life. I've gotten to know her through my work at the YW, and now grateful to count her as along one of my friends.
yeah.
And she's just such a wonderful inspiration. A little bit about her and her journey. She built a successful career as a senior executive in a Fortune 500 company for decades. And most recently, she was the division counsel and head of law for a large global life science corporation. She credits her professional success to her focus, tenacity, hard work, keen ear for corporate politics, and ability to develop key relationships. She has won numerous professional awards, including the YWCA Twin
Yeah.
Tribute of Women of Influence Award. She has won Assemblywoman Shavonda Sumter's Women History Month honoree, BlackDoctors.org Top Blacks in Healthcare, and Hofstra University School of Law's Outstanding Women in Law. She's also been recognized by Savoy Magazine as one of the most influential Black lawyers in America, and is featured is the featured executive in the quarterly 3 July 2019 profile magazine. So while climbing the corporate ladder, she's actively lifted as she rose, which I seen her do, and that's one of the great gifts she has, is sharing with all of us how we can do that as well. She uses her influence to bring along the next generation of business and community leaders. She's passionate about helping women defy the odds and develop their careers through mentoring, coaching, training, and identifying both powerful and limiting beliefs. She relates to her own experience of rebounding, both from professional and personal setbacks. As a result, she recently launched a new company herself, Measure of Ambition, and which is part of ShirellSpeaks, is a part of that entity, where she provides keynote speaking for workshops, coaching services, and prevents empowerment events. And I do encourage you, if you've never had the opportunity to be at one of those, you should definitely follow her and connect to one of her upcoming events. We will be linking her website. She's on all the social media sites, and you should definitely start to follow her.
Great, thank you.
So
That's
now
amazing.
I'm excited to share the mic with you, Shirell.
Yeah, I love this. Share the mic. Well,
So let's start, right?
mhm.
From, let's start somewhere. Let's start
Yeah,
somewhere. So let's start in talking a little bit about your interest and commitment to women's empowerment on a personal and professional level. So where did that come from, and
yeah.
how has that really, evolved your professional career?
That's a great question. I mean, one, I'm a woman, so it kind of comes naturally. I really think like the whole concept of empowerment, I probably was instilled to me pretty early. And I actually forgot to tell. I hope my mom is watching because I forgot to remind her.
It's taped. You can watch it later if
Okay,
you need
good.
to.
Yes, I'll get my credit later. But my mother, she was a young mother when she gave birth to me. But her commitment to me and making sure that I had the right opportunities to succeed, I think that was just instilled in me very early, and it became just part of my DNA. And I believe that I was always like that, growing up and then in college. And then when you enter the workforce, when you really see that as women, we really need to, one, encourage each other. But two, we have to learn how to empower ourselves to get to the place that we want to be. And so I just feel, it's just innately who I am. And when you see situations that can improve if we just simply empower each other and be there for each other, and then you just have no doubt that you just want to be part of that journey.
Well, and as I said, I've witnessed you bringing women along,
Yeah.
so I can attest to the power that you have, and I'm grateful that you share it for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Black women in particular.
Yeah.
How is empowering women, in one bucket, and then how is it different for empowering Black women?
You know what? That's a great question too. Well, look at you on the mic with the good question. In some respect, when we talk about the conversation of women in empowerment, particularly if I'm speaking with a client or if I'm speaking for an association, I try to get them to focus that Black women want the same thing that all women want, right? We want to be encouraged. We want to be able to have a successful career, a healthy lifestyle, be able to raise our children. We want the same things. And so the first thing we need to do is stop looking at it as separate initiatives, and to some extent, but to integrate it to be more focused on goal setting, right? And so, because once you start looking at it separate, you believe that we are separate. You begin to think that we need something extra to get to the same trajectory, to get to the same place that white women. But with that being said, because we are Black women and we live in an overall, racist society, and we have to, not overall, but we have pockets of racist society. We have policies and procedures that have historically, been means of leaving Black women and all Black people behind, particularly whether societal or in a corporation, that we have to be cognizant of that. And wherever those barriers are, we need to be intentional in removing them. And so for me as a woman, I cannot separate, and as a Black woman, I can't separate from my Blackness, right? And so when I think about women's empowerment, I think about empowering myself as a woman, but at the same time, understand that there are going to be other issues that I need to deal with because of the fact that I'm a Black woman that also need to be specifically addressed. As a woman in the field of life sciences and pharmaceutical and medical devices for so many years, there just weren't enough and a lot of women, and still are not a lot of women in general. So I do believe that I do catch the attention of all women, because at the end of the day, I really want all women to be very successful. And in that catch net, in that net will include Black and brown women at the same time. But as we lift all women, I never want the conversation to not include the specific challenges that a subset of us face. And I think that's going to be very important for us as we have this discussion, going forward.
So when we, talk about supporting women, very often we hear the terms mentorship and we hear the term sponsorship, both connected.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through a little bit about what are the difference between those two terms, because people may not, understand them?
Yeah, and there's been a lot more attention within the past, I would say, 5 to 7 years, with women speaking specifically about mentoring and sponsorship, and Black women really having an idea of what the difference is. Mentorship is when you are just there for someone, you give them advice, you encourage them. but you're not necessarily opening the door for them, right? And so people often, they don't have a problem with, or often you don't see a problem with mentoring Black women. Everyone, many people love to mentor Black women because, it makes them feel good, makes them feel that they're giving back, and they don't have to take any risk or do anything about when you're mentoring, other than giving up their time and some of their advice and some of their experiences. But when you're talking about sponsorship, that is when you sort of put your stamp of approval on someone. And in that is where Black women often find that there is no sponsorship of them. And that sponsorship is the way that they are able to kind of create, that pathway into corporations, where it's sort of like, I don't fish, and I've done it once and I cannot do that again, trust me. But, if I look at the analogy, if someone wants to teach someone, how to fish, or have them join their fishing club, they may show them where they can buy, tackle or bait. They may show them where they can rent a boat. They may show them where they can get all their supplies. And they may talk to them generally about some of the things that they may encounter while they're fishing. But if I really want you to be in my fishing club, right, I'm going to go with you to buy that fishing rod. I'm going to make sure that you buy the correct rod. I'm going to bring you in my boat. I'm going to introduce you to the rest of my fishermen's club. And when you're not there and we have space for a new member, I'm going to speak up for you, and I'm going to put my reputation there for you, right? That is where it drops off. And really, there is no reason for that to drop off, because at the end of the day, if you're looking at leadership development and you're looking at women development, if you're willing to do it for, white women, you should be equally willing to do it for non-white women. And that is where Black women often find themselves facing challenges. And so, what companies like to do, they like to continue to send them to development programs, when, sometimes they don't need any more development. They need the opportunity to exercise the development that you've given them. And so that is where you have to be a little bit more intentional on what you're doing. And so we need to be very serious, and people need to hold themselves. The organizations need to hold themselves accountable for the sponsorship. And, I tell you, there's never like a meeting. There's generally not a meeting that says, we're going to have a sponsorship meeting. Okay, you're going to sponsor this person, that person. That generally doesn't happen, right? Mentorship meetings all the time. Sponsorship meetings generally doesn't happen.
So how does someone get a sponsor then? What's been your experience? How does that relationship get started?
And see, that's where people generally can't go get a sponsor, right? And there lies the problem, because if Black women can go get one, we would have a whole lot of sponsors, just like we have a whole lot of mentors. We'll be running out grabbing sponsors, right? What happens is there has to be an awareness of people who are in power and understanding the power and the value of sponsorship. And they have to be intentional in saying, I want to make sure that I have a diverse workforce, but more importantly, I want to make sure that everyone in this organization has an equal opportunity to succeed. And I know what my stamp of approval means in getting that done. And so the organization and the leadership has to be more intentional about making sure they sponsor someone. What Black women can do that is within their sphere of power to get sponsorship is that they need to be aware that this is something that's absolutely needed. And it's very scary knowing that this is needed, but you don't often have the power and the ability to get that sponsor. But there are things that we need to be very conscious of to make sure that we are in a position when those opportunities arise, if they are going to happen in your organization, to be ready and available. And part of that is we have to come out of our comfort zone and making sure that we are speaking to a wide range of people. So people should know you up and down across. People should know who you are. And that means you have to take risky assignments. That means you have to go have coffee with people. That means that you have to do something that's extremely uncomfortable for us, and that is do a little ghosting. And because that is not a comfortable space for us. That means that you have to let other people know what you're doing, and when you're successful, and when you're not so successful, don't run away from it, but own it and talk about what you've learned from this experience. Now, that means that you have to get the right skill set. That means you need to know what skill set is necessary for that next elevation level. And then after, when you're doing all that, that means you need to have a real clear conversation with people who are within your higher scheme and let them know what your goals are, what your intentions are. But more importantly, you're asking them, how are they going to help you get there? Women often don't want to ask that question because they don't want the answer. They're afraid of the answer. They're afraid that the manager will tell them, well, I don't think you're ready. I don't think you're ever going to be ready. They're afraid that the manager will be upset, that they're placing them on the spot. They're afraid, and you cannot be afraid of that question, because otherwise you'll be wasting your time in an organization that's not willing to develop you. And there are other people who are waiting for you. Like, don't, you know, there's a big world out there, and there are people who are waiting for you, and there are people who are looking for you. And so that's one thing people should do.
Yeah. So when you get that answer,
Yeah,
what do you, when you're doing coaching, with clients
yeah,
around this, and Black women in
yeah,
particular,
yeah.
what's that coaching conversation like to kind of get them through hearing what they feared hearing?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. First, it's, the shock of the answer, but it doesn't always mean the death of that opportunity or relationship, right? Sometimes it can be, well, going back and coaching them about going back to get more clarity and specifics of what it is they need to do to get back on track, or to get on a track that's going to lead them to promotion or just a higher, exposure. Sometimes it's, okay, well, let's start to figure out what are your next options, and coming up with a plan on how do you get there. Most of the time, people have like so much, they're so fearful of so many things, and they conjure up things in their mind that are not true, right? So, well, I can't do anything else. I've been doing this for 15 years. And then you have to challenge those thoughts and say, really? And you kind of break it down and you challenge them. But when people realize, like, what am I talking about? Like, when they start to really think about what they're saying, and you challenge it, and it's like, is that 100% true? And it's like, not really. Well, how true is it? I don't know. Oh, 40% true? Okay, so 60% not true. Yeah, so let's talk about the 60%, right? Let's talk about the 40%. And so you have to really kind of challenge people and then help them get through it. But, people need to, I have this tagline that I often use. It's like, from awareness to action. People love being aware. We will gobble up information all day long. We will go to 1,001 seminars. We will go to conferences, but we don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
We just don't. When it comes to the action part, that's when we just kind of get stuck. And so what my job is to help them become aware, but then to move it to action.
That's so true. That awareness to action piece. That's an important nugget for sure.
Yeah.
So, let's talk role models.
Yeah.
I know that, you were unique in the position, especially the last position you held, being a Black woman, in such a senior role, in such a large company.
Yeah.
Are there role models, for Black women? How are they finding them? How are we creating them?
Yeah.
And they're so key, right? I mean, they're such a key part of this.
You need role model. Sometimes people think about like when we're young, we have role models, and everyone's thinking about, the Shirley Chisholm, when you look up to her, or somebody that you don't actually know and you're looking up to them, and they're larger than life figures. But the reality is that in any organization and any society and any association, you can't really be what you can't see, because you don't know whether it's possible until you actually see it. You can theoretically think about it being possible, but knowing it's possible is really gained when you see it. And often in an organization, particularly in these heightened times of sensitivity, they run around and they're scurrying with any initiative just to substantiate their statement. They're not thinking about what they're doing. They're not being intentional at all. And they're just, putting themselves in, like, spinning in a circle. But in reality, part of the belief that I can go forward in this organization is if I see someone that looks like me. And so if you are a junior manager or, say, emerging leader, right? So in the McKinsey report, they talk about emerging leaders and how there's a broken rung because there's not enough emerging leaders to pull from when you look at women to bring them into that senior spot. Well, there's a lot of reasons there are not a lot of women, and particularly Black women, not that they're not there, but there's not a lot of elevating of Black women into leadership roles either. But if you are in an organization and you don't see anyone that looks like you, that you can't role model after, the likelihood of you believing that you're going to be able to achieve something in that organization is very slim. And so people need to see senior people in organizations that they can role model after. And that makes them more committed to try to stay. But we also have to get comfortable in the current society that we have, is that as you get the Gen Zers that are now entering the workforce, and I love myself some Gen Zers. I find them to be just like, I have Gen Zers, so it's I find them to be very fascinating to me. But I study them like a rat. I just sit there and I stare at them. But the Gen Zers, when they are entering the workforce, that is generally what's on their mind. And we have to get to the point in organizations where we realize you're not going to keep people forever anymore. And the reality is because they've seen you not really stay with people forever. But that shouldn't be the goal, right? The goal should be, if I know I have most of my employees between 3 to 6 years, let me make sure I get the best 3 to 6 years, right? And they are strong and they are performing well, and I'm getting the best of that talent. Because when they leave, guess what? They will talk about your company as, oh my God, I worked there. That was such a great company. I learned so much. Wouldn't you rather have that on your review than that place was horrible. I wasn't learning. I wasn't growing. So, we have to get comfortable with understanding that we have to have role modeling at all levels so that people who are below can look up and see where they can go.
Well, all good stuff there, Shirell. So question for you. Obviously, this campaign is about sharing the mic and giving you a platform. Yeah. I know I've asked you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
What is it that, in this time that we're in right now, and, since George Floyd's murder, and we've seen a lot of, mobilization and activity happening around us, for you as a Black woman, what is some information that you would like, our community to know? You've got the mic.
Yeah,
you've got the mic.
Oh, I hope I don't start singing if I have the mic. I don't know how to sing. I always wish
whatever works.
I always wanted to know how to sing, and it never worked. What I want our community to know is that we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. We're a critical state in our society. We have to make a decision on what type of society we want to be. In order to get there, there's going to have to be some substantive changes that have to be made. You can't be in your comfortable spot and still expect there to be change. That's not possible. And so, if you are a non, Black or brown person, and you look at the society that we're in and you're like, something has to be different. Oh, this should not be where we are. The question you have to ask yourself is, what am I willing to do to effectuate that change? And that's going to be taking some risk. When I say taking risk, I don't mean that, oh my God, talking to a Black person is risky. What I mean is that you're going to be going out your comfort zone, and that you're going to be engaging in a conversation. And like anything else that we do that we want change, there's going to be some successes and there's going to be some failures. But you've made a decision that you want change. And so that means that if you are a parent and say your focus is in the school system, then are you speaking to the principal and the superintendent about why don't my kids have a diverse curriculum? It's important that our Black and brown kids see themselves in the curriculum, and that Black kids aren't going to school and they're shrieking in their seats because the only thing that they're being taught is about slavery or civil rights, which are very pivotal and important parts of our history. But we're also scientists. We're also, politicians. We're scientists. We're corporate leaders, and there's a way that you can weave in other history that we have into your curriculum because you're talking about other people. So it's not like we're not talking about other people. And so that is a change, right? If you're talking about you're at work and you have the opportunity to be, at a table, seat at the table is a kind of generic, goofy term. I don't really kind of fool around with that term because it means nothing. It just means nothing, right? Because we all know who've been senior leaders in corporations, after a certain level, it doesn't matter. You're going to get a seat at that table if generally the organization thinks that you can pull your big seat up at that table, period, right? But in the reality is that if you are at a table where you can effectuate change, how are you holding your organization accountable, and what risk are you willing to take? Because you can't sit in an organization and look around and it's like, oh my God, there are no Black or brown people here. Oh, they need to do something about that. No, what are you doing about it? And when you have an opportunity to hire, what are you doing to talk to HR and recruitment to make sure they cast a wide net? What are you doing to make sure that you're bringing in, Black and brown vendors, women vendors to your organization? So, I think that we're going to look back on this, and either we're going to be in the same or worse situation, or we're going to, be better. But in order to be better, we have to fundamentally change, and we have to fundamentally say that I need to do something different, and how am I going to factor into that equation? And as Black and brown people, what I tell people when I'm coaching them or when I'm doing a workshop is that we cannot always assume where our support is going to come from. And so, even as I launch my business, I speak to a lot of women of color, obviously, because there's obviously the natural attraction there. And I speak to a lot of women, speak to men too, because I'm a lawyer and I'm from corporate, so men kind of identify with that part.
Right.
But at the end of the day, we have to be open to have conversations and not assume where our support is going to come from. Because even I look at my career, just about every person that championed me to the next level was a white person. It was either a white woman or it was a white man. And because they saw something in me and they championed me. I didn't have champions, that were necessarily senior Black people. I was in an industry that didn't really have Black or brown people. So we have to be more open, and we can't be afraid and not make assumptions. If you speak to your manager who's a white guy, you're going to think that he's going to be offended. Actually, no, he may have been sitting there waiting for you to say something to speak up for yourself.
Right.
So, we got to kind of get out of our comfort zone and stop assuming that there's not going to be a favorable air on the other side, and be open to get the help from wherever it comes, but also be open to the dialogue, because I'm not an expert on racial identity. I mean, I'm a Black woman and I know what racial identity means to me, but culturally, historically, what racial identity means, I read books, I read books for that. And so we just have to make sure that we are making sure we're filling our information up with the right information, and not following social media and everybody else's perspective, but go out there and read things from people who are scholars. But at the same time, we got to get out of our comfort zone.
So is there a book in particular that you recommend that people read when you think about, that reading?
But I must say, I'm one of those people that read like 1,001 books at the same time. Like I got like 5, like even on my desk, it's like 6 books here. And so for me, I know Ibrahim Kendi is getting a lot of, play. I'm glad he's getting play, honestly, because I can only imagine being a scholar all those years and not really getting a lot of attention. Now all of a sudden he's getting a lot of attention. I'm not going to call out any particular scholar. What I would say is go to African American bookstore. Go online to an African American bookstore and you ask them, what are some good books that I can read to understand historical, racial identity or racial oppression? And they will identify books for you. It will not only be his, I mean, I think it's great. I'm glad that we're buying
Right.
books. I like him too. I follow him, but he's not the only author. He will tell you he's not the only author. So go to an African American bookstore and ask for recommendations.
Well, that's a great suggestion, because that's 2 for 1. You're going to get some good information at the same time. You're going to support a Black business. So
yeah, absolutely.
that's a great
I'm a
advice.
neuroscientist now. I'm a big neuroscientist writer because I think that when people understand how the mind works and that they're not that different from other people, it kind of helps people.
Feel, that's a good, yes. Well, Shirell, as always, this is why, I can always talk to you for hours.
Yes, this is fun.
It's always enlightening and a lot to cover. And I'm grateful that you were open to sharing the mic, with our YWCA followers. And again, for those of you following, please follow Shirell. We have her linked here. We'll have her linked in our comments. She's linked on this at the top of this feed, so you can go to her page and like it. She's on Instagram. She's everywhere. She's on LinkedIn. She does a lot of great workshops and opportunities for you. And she has been doing a lot in the Gen Z space, which has been very interesting too.
Yeah, I love the Gen Z.
So definitely check her out, and you can be learning more for sure.
Thank you.
Of course, and we just look forward to always the next opportunity.
Oh yeah, the next time we'll chit chat. I always enjoy hanging out with my family at the Y.
Yes.
YW.
Yes. We feel the same. We feel the same. And for those of you watching, if there was someone in your life that you wished had the opportunity to see this conversation, don't despair. It lives on Facebook, and you can share it with them after the fact, or you can push them over. I also encourage you to, if you didn't get to see last night, we did a very impactful town hall discussion on systemic racism with some amazing thought leaders in the areas of law enforcement, education, child protective services, and in film and media. And the conversation was absolutely, thought-provoking, and left a lot of opportunity for us to to continue learning. So I encourage you to watch that as well. And we've linked ShirellSpeaks.com here. We've also linked so that you can watch the town hall. And we hope you join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. We'll be doing our next episode of YWTV. And we'll be talking with some of our funders, and also a key advocate and leader, Linda Sispo from the Center for Nonprofits, to talk a little bit about, during this time that we've been impacted by COVID, how it's impacted nonprofits in particular, and how that will impact our social service network for our community in the long term. Obviously, we have a lot of systems in place that are trying to support individuals that have impacted, but nonprofits have been serving individuals and are a social service net for our communities. But COVID and the way that we're living now, so virtual, has put an absolute stop to some of our businesses, some of our revenue generating opportunities, some of our fund development, and yet we still are being called, if not more so, to serve. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn about some of the groups that have stepped up to help organizations like ours, and also ways that you as an individual can look at legislation and opportunities to support making sure that nonprofits can continue to get funded through this time until we can all get back to a different place. That I don't want to say we're going to go back to normal, because clearly there was nothing normal about where we were, but back to a place where we can go back to practices that are going to help keep us all strong. So with that, we wish you a wonderful day. Thank you for taking this time with us. Thanks, Shirell, again. And, we'll see you on ShirellSpeaks, and see you all soon. Everyone have a great day. Thanks so much.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.